thank you to everyone who tuned in to the regular show, the boring part with the three of us, Seth, Marv, and Dom. We now have the reason everybody was tuning into that show with us, Mr. Bryce Blevins himself, after a massive victory this weekend. And you led the charge on the mound for the Herd, man.
Yeah, it was, it was an amazing weekend for us, getting to play at home after, especially I'm sure everybody's familiar with what happened last year. At third place, we went down to their place in a hostile environment, great environment. Like I said, last time I was on the show, one of the greatest places I've ever played at and greatest atmospheres especially. And to have them coming back here this year, it was I had it marked down on the schedule for this year, and I was pumped up, getting to start that Friday night game against them and get things started off right for us for the weekend. And the atmosphere at our place, it was great. It was everybody was behind us the whole way through. We the beginning of the game, was going our way, ended up getting down 3-0 off of a couple, my mistakes of, they bunted a couple times, ended up not being able to get it, the easy outs that they gave me, and they put runners on quick and did what a Southern Miss baseball team usually does and just adds on, one by one, doing the simple things of just putting the ball in play. And we end up in the bottom of that inning. I believe it was the fifth. They put 3 on us in the top. We end up putting 4, which I'm sure everybody saw the video that has social media, of the inside the park home run. And from that point on, I knew it was my job to go out there and do what I was doing, right before that little mistake of an inning and put up 4 more zeros for us and give us the win on a Friday night ball game.
Absolutely. Marv, you got a question for him?
Yeah, first off, how's the arm feel? 122 pitches. I mean, I think that's the third time you've thrown over 100 this year and had a couple close to that. How's the arm feel? And when will you do your next bullpen just to kind of get things straightened out?
It feels great. I'm actually, we've done a good job this year of, what, we call a build up, I guess you can say, of, I didn't run out there on opening weekend and, try and push it too far where I was throwing 100, 110 pitches on opening day. And, for the first month of the season, if, like you said, I went over, 100 pitches, and it was probably just because I was closing out an inning and that was my last. It wasn't because they were just running me back out there and I was already at that mark. But it feels great. I will, like I said, I'll throw a bullpen tomorrow, which is Tuesday. And, Wednesday I'll kind of do like a recovery day. And then Thursday I'll get in, what we call a skill day and be ready to go Friday again against App State.
Very cool.
Nice.
I know
Bryce.
go ahead, Seth.
Sorry, Marv. Go ahead and finish.
No, we're obviously we're all App State fans, and the guy that's going to be on the bump against you on Friday night, Caleb Cross, has been throwing amazing lately. So we were talking on the show Friday for us is must see TV because just 2 phenomenal pitchers. I'm sure it's going to be a great environment considering where everybody is in the sunbelt. So we're all really looking forward to watching you 2 guys compete.
Sir.
Hey, you said that. I do rep both, but I mean, give me some credit here. I came prepared for tonight's interview.
I see that. Good hat. Good looking hat.
Yeah, and you got it on in this picture here. You're throwing. That's a home attire there,
sir.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
When I saw that last year, I was like, have to have it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's got
That's right. Right on the back of it, the Herd.
Yep.
Right.
I love this one. It's nice and sharp. Now, I don't know about the white keeping it clean. That's going to be difficult, but I will do my best.
Looks good on you.
Seth, go back to your question there.
Bryce, we're not going to name any names, but a couple of us buried you guys after you lost 3 to Hawaii. Again, not going to name any names on here. But one of us stayed faithful all year. I will name that guy. That was me. I
appreciate
that. Talk about the year so far. Talk about we sit here and talk every week, and we try to talk a little bit about each team. But to me, I feel like you guys really started rolling after going to Atlanta, going to Georgia Tech for the weekend. Talk about the ups and downs and where you guys see the rest of the year going.
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning. Against Hawaii, we went down and how long of a travel day you can only imagine that was to get down there and play, and it was one of the greatest experiences that you could have, especially as a college baseball player. You're in Hawaii getting to play college baseball on opening weekend and, getting to, see what Hawaii's all about. And, we went down there and I'm just going to go back a little bit even before that. And I'll just say this, our team this year is really special. It really is. And, a lot of people may not have seen it, for the first month, first 6 weeks, so to say. But we've definitely had our times, where people see, like, oh, this team, is definitely a lot better than years past, as you can only imagine. But they, we're right up there at the top in, the sunbelt this year. Anybody, I'm a firm believer, we're top 3 team in the sunbelt on any given day. And like I said, we go down to Hawaii, we get swept that opening weekend. We go down to Georgia Tech, and it was different because a lot of this year, guys have each other's backs, and a lot of hard situations where, you could put the blame on, one individual person, or, hey, this guy struck out, he didn't knock in the, 2 runs that we needed, and start doing that, start putting names down on the table. But, it's a lot different because, every guy, even though we were 0-4 going into Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech's really good, I just saw today they're a top 15 team now. They have 3 good Friday, Saturday, Sunday arms. Obviously their lineup, is an ACC lineup where, they hit the ball to all fields and have power and do the small things. And we go down there, and we take 2 from them. And then, you look up and you're coming back home, just winning 2 games at an ACC team, and kind of have that little fire in you again, where you're like, all right, here we go. Now we go. And we come back home and we sweep again. We played Farley Dickinson, as I want to say. And then we go to Bradley and we do what we're supposed to do and take 3 from them. And, here we are. And it was, like I said, we get into conference play. And obviously, we didn't start conference play how we wanted to. You can look back and you look at all our games. And I think I said this the same time I was on here last year. You look at some of our games, 1-run games. You know what I mean? 1 little more play, 1 extra run, 1 base hit, same thing. But the difference is last year I believe that we kind of started holding our heads a little bit. As we got to this point where we are now in the season, we're more than halfway through it. And whereas now, we just came off a big series win against Southern Miss. Like that was huge. That was huge for us, especially. And not to say, we believe, no matter what happens in the game, no matter if, we took 1 from Troy. You could look at that weekend and say again, hey, could have swept, could have taken 2, at least 2. And just with one more thing happening. And we kept last weekend, we put it all together. We pitched the crap out of it. We did. And then we had timely hits against Southern Miss. And we're starting to put it all together, as we get deeper and deeper in the season, what I'm trying to say. And, it's going to be special, I think, whenever by the time we conclude the season, you look up and see where we're at and see what we're doing.
I want to follow up on that because you're 100% right. 5 of your 7 conference losses are about 1 run. Easily could have got 2 or 3 from JMU or Troy. And we were talking on the show earlier about how, momentum is contagious in any sport, especially baseball. Like hits become contagious. How do you parlay a big series win off of that? You got App State coming in this weekend, and you look at the standings, and there's only 3 games that separate the tie in 4th from the tie in 1st. So how do you guys keep that momentum rolling and kind of continue to climb up to where where you guys think you can be?
Well, we like to say take it day by day. No game. Every game is a big game for us. Every game is a big game for everyone in this conference. Even the top tier of whoever you want to say, whether it's Troy right now or Southern Miss, whichever one it is, it's a big game for everyone. Because on any given day, I truly, and I said this, just a couple minutes ago, but anyone can win, in this conference right now. Anyone can win. And like I said, I believe that the way we're going, we're going to start climbing it. And, like going back to your question you just asked me is taking it day by day. And, we have a midweek game on Wednesday against Ohio University. We have to go down there first before we even get to the weekend and play a good brand of baseball against them because, anything can happen against them on any given day. And if we play the right way and we do the right things, and we should take care of business, and we go into Friday, off of a win against Southern Miss on the doubleheader Saturday, and we win against Ohio. Then we go on the weekend, and it's a big series for us again. It's like you said, there's only a certain amount of games from first to fourth, whatever it may be, and we come, like I said, we get another home series, in front of our home crowd, and App State gets to roll in here, and like I said, we play clean baseball and play it the right way, and we pitch the way we should pitch. Then we'll take care of business again.
You're glass half full or glass half empty. You were 2 runs away from sweeping. Are you satisfied with taking 2, or are you wishing that obviously you would have had the sweep?
No. I more than anything, any weekend I'm wanting to sweep everyone that we play. Because like I said, not to talk about last year, but we were like 1 or 2 wins from whoever we played that we lost in the sunbelt conference from making the tournament. You know what I mean? And the more games you win, I guess the safer, I guess you can say, it makes you feel. But at the end of the day, every win means more than what you can only imagine by the time this thing ends, at the end of the year. And so, yeah, 1 more against Southern Miss would have been nice, would have made you feel even better about the weekend. But obviously, winning a series against, what is a top, I think they were top 13 team in the nation. And, against us, the pitching that they have, especially, Friday night, their guy, he's lights out. And their lineup that they put together every year, every year that they put together, it's going to be a good lineup no matter what. And like I said, 1 more would have definitely been nice.
I'll tell you what, man, I like you. We have a lot of people on this show, and everybody's passionate about their school, but we can tell you bleed green, and you love your teammates, and you love this team, and you're just a good dude, man. You represent the school well, and we
appreciate that.
We appreciate you for that, and we appreciate you being on with us tonight. I mean, I know we're not done, but you can tell your passion. You can tell your passion for Marshall and that school and that baseball team, and you're a true leader, man.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate you, man.
I want to piggyback on that. So talk about the other pitching performances. Yeah, you do drop one of the series games to Southern Miss, but it was only 4-3. You didn't let it get out of hand. Your pitching staff kept them in check and then completes the shutout victory on Sunday as well to finalize the series. Yeah. But, I mean, talk about the other guys in your rotation a little bit.
Yeah. Our Saturday guy, Griffin Miller, man, he's been lights out all year. And he's a name that everybody, if you don't know, you should get to know. A right-hander, has a 3-pitch mix, really good slider, really good sinker. Man, he's held us together, for on Saturdays. He's the one who, if we drop that first game on Friday night, you always know what you're going to get out of him. He's another guy on our team, and I like to call our team, we're a bunch of competitors, a bunch of guys that, just want to win and want to do everything you have to, that it takes to win. And he's what they call a little dirt ball. He competes with the best of them, and he's been locked all year for us. Our Sunday guy, freshman now, he didn't start at the beginning of the season, but has started the past couple weekends for us, Clint Moak. And like I said, he's another name. He's going to be a big time player, the next couple of years, and he's just beginning, all of his success. He was locked out of the pen at the beginning of the year, ends up getting the start on Sundays for us now, and has done an unbelievable job, for a freshman, especially, like I said, he's done an unbelievable job the past couple of weeks, the whole season. But, you come have Southern Miss and, you need a win. Like we're tied in 1-1 in the series for that doubleheader. And, you lose that first game and you have a doubleheader that day, they can get away from you. People can lose that first game on that last Saturday, and we could have held our heads. But he came out, pounding the zone, getting weak outs and, hitting with every one of his pitches and got us a big win. And not just a big win, but, I mean, he threw a shutout, a 9-inning shutout against a really good team, supposedly the 13th best team in the nation. And no, and I don't mean that any way towards them, but that's how it is. And he pitched his butt off, that's for sure.
Yeah. Do you even look at that ranking? I mean, does it mean anything to you after
nowadays? No. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because, like I said, it's baseball, man. On any given day, anyone can be anyone, and it takes, just on any given day, you do the right things and you play clean baseball and you have timely hits and, you're clean around the field. And more than likely, it's going to have a good outcome to it at the end of the day whenever you get the last final out, and that's something I just believe in nowadays. So
you mentioned Moak going 9 innings. What did you tell him before that one? Because you could have told him that you did that last year too. 8 of them scoreless, if I'm reading that correctly, right?
Yeah. No, that's like I said. We have a bunch of competitors, and that's one thing I like about this team is I guess I could go around, and hey, let's hop everybody up, let's get excited. But everybody knew what we were trying to do, especially after we lost that first game, which it wasn't good, to lose that first game, obviously, on that Saturday. But, that third game, we're at our home field. We've played great in front of our home crowd this year. We knew that, we get one more win, and here we go. You know what I mean? Here we go. And he knew it was at the task at hand. He knew what he had to do, and he's not someone that needs that extra motivation. As soon as he threw that first pitch, I was like, yeah, it's on. It's on. He's on today, and it's on as long as we get a couple runs, and which we did, and we took care of business, and so did he. So it was great to, like I said, get that series win against them, and now we go.
Marv, you got another one?
I'm just noticing.
I'm going to do
noticing. Let me hold on. I appreciate Bryce being. He's a team before me. He won't even talk about himself. He's always talking about his teammates. Marshall's lucky to have you, man. You're a good one, and just sitting here listening to you talk, man. You're a leader. I could sit here and listen to you talk all night. Like I'm learning so much about Marshall baseball. We knew a little bit about Bryce Blevins, but we didn't know much about Marshall baseball until just the last few minutes. I mean, you can't help but pull for you guys.
Yeah,
every single week.
Seth tried to go through a bullpen is what he's trying to say.
I'm trying to convince these two to hop on the Marshall train. These guys were already buried you at Hawaii. They weren't even going to let you get back on the plane.
Oh, I was come on. We did not.
That's an over-exaggeration there. That's an over-exaggeration. I know we got some fans that sent in some questions, but I'm going to go completely off baseball related. We always like to ask this question. You're at home. You throw 122 pitches, big win. What does Bryce eat for dinner after that? Your go-to spot in Huntington.
Well, my go-to is Roosters. Roosters is a wing place known for their wings, and you get your money's worth there, so to say. So after a game, it isn't sometimes you roll up in Buffalo Wild Wings and they, you take one bite of a chicken wing and, there you go. It's over with. You got to take at least 2 to finish one. And, I usually bring that box home and I'm eating it later that night or, the next day. So that's my big meal. Me and my family are big supporters of me and support, me every time I'm out there on the mound, no matter where I am, whether it's home or away. So we usually like a good meal.
Paying you to say that?
I was going to say that's the next step right here.
I wouldn't.
Hey, what's the go-to flavor of wings at Roosters?
There you go.
I'm a big mild guy. I keep it simple. I keep it simple with mine. So nothing too much that, will get you too going, but I keep it simple. That's for sure.
Nice. Well, Marv mentioned the viewer or submissions as far as questions go. I've got a couple similar ones here from some people, but this is actually, I think, both from Old Row Marshall accounts. They want to know any pregame or postgame rituals, and alongside of that, does it change whether there's a win or a loss, or does it change depending on how you feel you played? Anything like that?
Yeah. One of my biggest pregame rituals, and I'm not too big on that stuff, but I will like to say this is I cannot throw on my jersey until I go pick up a baseball to start throwing before the game. I cannot. And maybe a different one that's never been heard of, but I'm usually in, no matter if it's 90 now, it gets humid out there. I'm not throwing on a sweatshirt, but usually, it could be 80 plus, with no humidity. I'm throwing on a sweatshirt before that game just to get a good sweat going, if that makes sense. And, just get nice and loose. So, yeah, that would probably be my biggest pregame ritual. And postgame, I'm not a big postgame ritual guy. I usually, especially after, you pitch a good game and win and everybody's feeling good, it's usually a quick shower in the in the clubhouse and throw some clothes on. And, my family, like I said, big supporters. So they're usually waiting on me wherever we are, to go grab a bite to eat. I usually spend, the rest of an hour or two with them eating dinner and head back to my place and get ready for the next day to go, get win number 2, hopefully.
Nice.
Does your family, do they live local? Are they able to attend almost every home game?
Yeah. I'm from about 45 minutes away. In Eastern Kentucky is where I'm from. Really close. Well, 45 minutes isn't nothing. So my mom actually, she makes the drive every day. She works at a hospital down here.
Okay.
So if that tells you anything, how small of a town it is and how close it is where I'm from, she works at a hospital down here. So I have her right here nearby, if I ever needed anything, which is great to have. Not many people, especially college athletes, aren't that lucky, to go to their school and have, someone 5 minutes away from campus, every day. But I am, and fortunate enough and lucky enough and thankful for all that they do for me and all the support that they give me week in and week out.
That's awesome.
Nice. Another submission here, and you kind of probably just answered some of it, but we are MU75 on Twitter was asking what makes Marshall so special to you, and I'm sure part of it is being kind of regional and close to home there, but anything else that kind of lays out that you want to talk about real quick?
Yeah, what makes Marshall so special to me, man, is you come here and a lot of people, that graduate their senior year of high school and they're like, oh, what am I going to do? What friends am I going to have? Which, I'm a college athlete, so I'm lucky enough, to be around guys and make those friends every day and fortunate enough for that. But, it's the family ordeal around here that there is, the family feeling that you get, no matter if it is my teammates, no matter if I'm walking to what we call our student center where, people eat, and we call it the herd fuel, is where all the athletes eat. And, you walk in there and it's not just one team talking to, each other. It's a bunch of teams just collide and talk to each other. And it's great, because every team and every athlete is supporting one another at the end of the day. And that's a big thing that a lot, you go to these bigger schools and they could probably, care less about what the other team's doing or who the other team is, an athlete. And that's the difference between here. And like I said, just, going back to our baseball team is, the family feeling, we got a bunch of new guys this year, and we roll them up in here and nobody knows each other at the beginning of the year. And I swear by the end of, probably in the next 10 days after we met each other, we were going out to eat. Like I remember on day 2, we all went out as a team together to eat, made that happen. We're all doing, hangouts, and all this different stuff, which is great, and like I said, it's just a family feeling. And, and that, trust me, that leads into, your season. Like I said, now, whenever things start rolling bad, and people could easily just, throw in the towel individually, like throw in the towel, but that's not, something that we're going to do or something that we have done. And that's something that, I'm believing in, that the family feeling, like I said.
Yeah, I can tell you this, speaking to numerous Marshall people in the past and over recent days, even with Russ from Thundercast, shout out to those guys. They do a great job as well for Marshall athletics. But, your whole school seemingly came down here to the Raleigh area for the national championship in soccer. And like you said, you could just feel the emotion and the hospitality within that fan base. That was by far the deepest travel fan base of any of the 4 teams in the Final Four for soccer. Yeah. And I've seen it many times for other sports as well. So yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from with the Marshall feeling more like a family than a lot of other colleges will present to you. It makes a lot of sense. Another one from Old Row, which one of these guys probably indirectly wanted to ask anyway. You play at the Jack, and that's an awesome home field advantage. But where is your favorite place to play away from home so far? In this, you haven't been to like every sunbelt facility yet, I'm sure. But
no, I haven't been to every one of them. I've been to most. My favorite one, man. I want to say, like I said, I want to say Southern Miss. I really do. Southern Miss, I went down there and obviously pitched a great game, but, besides, pitching a great game, just the atmosphere, man, they support their team. They love their team. That's something, I'll always give credit, for any other team, is the way they get behind their guys there, and there's another team in this conference, Louisiana, they do the same. But Southern Miss for me is just that biggest one. And it kind of gets to me because like it isn't just college students, it's college students all the way, up to people to the older people, and they're walking in there and, they're from the get-go. It's from pitch one. You can just feel the atmosphere, the energy in the atmosphere that every single fan in that stadium is behind their team and they love their team. And that's something, I'll always give credit to them for.
If I'm not mistaken, Dom, I think this. Southern Miss is the only team that has a waiting list for season tickets for baseball, correct?
I believe so. I believe that's what I had heard. Yeah.
I don't doubt it.
Crazy.
I don't doubt it at all.
It's pretty awesome.
They got that place in the outfield. I think they call it the Roost. It's
Yeah.
Just what is it, like trucks lined up and they're just
tailgating. Oh, yeah. Air horns and everything out there. Like, I remember warming up there last year and it from the get-go, you were getting people just talking to you. And it wasn't even, bad things. People just asking you questions and just talking to you. Great people at the end of the day. Great people that just love their team. And that's, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have one more related to the Jags. So now you guys have been in this. Well, you're not been in it for 2 years. You're going through season 2 now. How does it stack up, man? I want to know how it compares to some of these other sunbelt institutions or otherwise. You've obviously played down in Hawaii even now. So, what's the lay of the land like? Did they really do a great job at you guys' home facility at this point?
I tell you what, like I said, when our fans show up, they travel, like you said, a few minutes ago, they travel. But when they show up, from the moment that they walk in that stadium before they even sit down, they're behind you. I mean, I'll be warming up in our bullpen, and there's not even really it's like grassy, up above our bullpen. And, not high grass, obviously, but there's no concrete. And on a rainy day, it's really slippery. And there'll be little kids and families and parents just come and watch, and there's kids as we're walking out from our clubhouse onto the field before the game, just waiting to give you a high five. And, that, a lot of people will try and play it cool, but deep down that means a lot to, college athletes, just getting that high five, it gives you on a bad day, you may not be feeling it that day. And you look at that little kid who would probably die to, be in your shoes right now, and you look at him, he's over here holding a high five out for you. And, it kind of gets your day going again, kind of gives you that little, hey, let's do this, the right way today. And that's the biggest thing. And another biggest thing, it doesn't have to do with anything like that is, our stadium. A lot of people, I'm sure if you got them on here and you asked, hey, how'd you, a hitter especially, you ask them if they squared up one and they say, yeah. And you ask them if it went anywhere, they'll probably say no. Because there's not many balls that go pretty far at our place. And a lot of people will tell you that. I'm sure Southern Miss probably could tell you, just as easy that the ball does not fly at our field. And as a pitcher, I love that. As a pitcher, I love that. I love that. But
so that makes it all the more impressive that your first, not you specifically, but your team's first at bat in the new stadium, wasn't it the first pitch that went yard?
Very first pitch. Very first pitch.
You can't write that, can you?
You can't write it any more perfect. I'll never forget, that day. Of course, our stadium's packed. It's opening day of our stadium. It's a cold day, really cold day, wet, and just the energy, like I said, was out of the roof. And he gets up there. Trey Honders was his name, and first pitch came out of the guy's hand, and just boom. And cold day, like I said, our place is not a place that, especially to left field, our wind blows out to the right, to right field usually, right center. And on that day, that wind was blowing to the right, and he just smacked it to left field. And we were like, no way, no way, and it goes over that fence. And that was, it was the beginning. Like I said, it's the beginning of something special. And I've said it since that day that, Marshall baseball will continue to only get better from, where we began last year.
Yeah, that is
Bryce. You can
go ahead.
You can elaborate on this how much ever you want, but coming off the success that you had last year, 4-time, pitcher of the week. In today's age, there are poachers out there, I guess. Do you, without getting into it too much, did the phone calls come after last season? trying to take you away from Marshall at all?
Yeah, you know about that. You know how today's world works in this game. You know, no matter what sport it is, they always try and come find you. That's something I'll say it that way. And
Yeah.
like I said, I love it here. I love it here. This place, it is 45 minutes away, and I'm fortunate enough to, be right here and be able to go home, and have a home cooked meal, really whenever I want it. But being able to be here and around our coaching staff, man, like I'll say this, and I think I said it last time I was on here. There's no better coaching staff, in college baseball than the one that I have right now. The energy they bring every day, and the way that they try and teach you things, what I mean? Just not about just baseball, but about life. It's done the right way by them. And, whenever my time is up here, like I'll never be able to thank them enough for how much more of a man they've made me since I stepped foot on this campus, what will be 3 years ago, after the season. But, like I said, Marshall baseball is special to me. I came in here and, we weren't winning. We weren't winning my freshman year. You could say we weren't winning last year. Obviously we did better than years past last year. But the end goal for me is to obviously win a sunbelt championship here. And, I feel like, I didn't just step foot on campus and, was fortunate and lucky enough to, hey, you're going to, whatever your freshman pitcher's dream is to start, I imagine. And I didn't have that luck. Yeah, I pitched my freshman year. I pitched some big innings for us, and I learned a lot freshman to sophomore year. And I'm fortunate enough, like I said, to have went through those hard times my freshman year, because I believe that's what made me better for my sophomore year. And I believe that's a big reason why I had the year I had last year. And going into this year, I have it even more. And, obviously, my start to this year wasn't the hottest. And I'm picking, I'm just now, getting back to picking it up, and I believe that this is only the beginning to a great year again for me. But like I said, going back to your question, is Marshall baseball is home, and I'm here for, to win a sunbelt championship, and I want nothing more than to do it here and to finish my college career here.
Nice.
So yes.
I
Phil,
got a
I
question.
think that's the most passionate person we've ever had. I love it. Absolutely love it, man.
What other sports did you play growing up, and when did you realize that baseball was kind of your thing and something you were going to stick with?
Yeah, baseball in my family has always been. I played basketball to start off. Answering your question, I played basketball throughout high school. I loved basketball. Basketball was fun to me. It was just, you wait for baseball season to roll around again. Kind of got me there. What would be quicker, in my mind, and it kind of was my fun way, I guess, of getting out and running and staying conditioned, for baseball season. And yeah, so, but back to your question is, basketball, but my family is a big baseball family. Everybody in my family is big into sports, no matter what sport it is. Numerous of people in my family have went on to play college sports. My uncle, speak on him a little bit, Stephen Blevins, he pitched at Cincinnati for 2 years, then came here for his junior year and then got drafted. So being able, to, I never want to say I want to fill his shoes, because, I want to be my own person at the end of the day and do whatever, was meant for me to do. And being able to come here and, start another, I guess legacy or whatever you want to call it, and finish my career here and do some great things here and win, Marshall baseball championship in the Sunbelt, like I said, is my end goal. So yeah.
Were you a pitcher only in high school, or did you play the field and bat?
No, I played the field. I played outfield. I played first base primarily when I wasn't pitching. I hit. I did it all, and like I said, I was growing up, which I'm a left-handed pitcher. So certain spots, you can't play. I wish I could. I wish I really could, but I was limited, throughout my career. But I made it worthwhile while I had the chance to do it. That's for sure.
All right. So the main follow-up question to that is, did you hit tanks in high school?
No. I'm not gonna sit on here and try and act like I did, because I didn't. I was more of a get the job done kind of guy, and line drives, in the gaps and hit runs, and I did what I had to do in order to do the small things. And that's the type of guy I was.
Very cool.
So Well, I'll stick to the basketball thing real quick. Former Marshall Thundering Herd basketball player Mika Hanlogden goes from you guys to Florida,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Things happen. I'm not even keeping up with the game because we're in this, but was there a little bit of a rooting interest? Did you interact with Mika at all while you guys were both there at Marshall or not?
So, yeah, funny thing about him was me and him came in as freshmen together, I believe. We and where I lived my freshman year, I lived in the dorms, and his dorm was probably 3 or 4 doors away from mine. So I kind of got to know him really well. Great guy, great dude. He was the same way. He was passionate about his team, loved being around his teammates and the game of basketball, obviously. And he had a great season here, and made the best choice. He had made the best decision he had to make for him. At the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you, and he did that. And I wish him nothing but the luck. And I'm sure he's having great success at Florida right now.
Yeah. Seth? Were you checking the score there? What's it looking like?
Houston's
up 10.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, I just thought about that because I saw Mika in the first round down here in Raleigh, so I just thought I'd ask if there was any knowledge of each other and interaction in the past. So I know how obviously a lot of athletes interact, so I figured there was probably at least some run in. And I think you probably played more high school basketball than him. Is that right? Like, didn't he just get into basketball like his senior year or something?
I'm gonna be honest. I know a lot about him. I do not know that. Looking at him, I'd be like, yeah, man, you played basketball your entire life, didn't you? But
right, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, like his dad played in the NBA, not like a long time career thing, but like he played a year or two or something like that.
Yeah.
But I believe if I read correctly, he was actually like a lacrosse player growing up. And then obviously his size, people were like, we need to get you on the basketball court, which is pretty obvious.
For his size, you haven't made in the game of basketball if you have what he has and his athletic ability. It was something else. It's something that you don't see in our conferences, like this type, especially in basketball. It's a little bit different in baseball, but for basketball, he was a different human being out there on the court. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a tell sign of like why you don't see a bunch of Sunbelt baseball players moving around though. Like this conference is just as good as a bunch of others out there.
It is.
We consistently say on this show that, this ain't a mid-major baseball conference. You can say that about basketball. You can certainly say that about football because of the discrepancies that we see. But baseball, we just don't believe that's true. So
yeah, that's for sure. But you just like nowadays, especially, people have a good year in these types of conferences, and obviously, like you said, phone calls and all the stuff that happens nowadays starts coming. And you have that, it sounds really good. They make it sound really good. I can, and at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in, starting, finishing what you started and, and you can make that move and it can either be, for some guys, it's the best move they've made ever. And for some guys, they're wishing they were back where they, started. Yeah. And, for me, it's neither of that. I'm right where I want to be. Right where I'm going to be and right where I'm going to stay to be and finish it out here. So that's for sure.
I think the loyalty plays a part in it, right? Like what you're saying, like I came here for a reason, the proximity to home. I think in other sports, you get sold on the fact that, hey, if you want more exposure, if you want a better chance of going to the next level, you need to come here. It's not true in the Sun Belt. I mean, we have 19 guys drafted and an additional 5 or 6 signed free agent deals. Like, you're going to play against great level competition. You're going to get plenty of exposure playing baseball in this conference because
you are
outside the ACC and SEC. I'll argue with anyone. This is the 3rd best conference in baseball in the country.
Yeah. And the guys. I'll go back to Friday night. The dude I pitched against, JV Middleton, was his name, if I believe. Dude was lights out. 92, 96. I'm pretty sure. Wipeout slider, good changeup. Like. I'm sure. It was a game. Like I was pitching that game. Obviously, I was locked in, on what I had to do. But you can't help but, just realize after, you sit back at night and you're laying your head on your pillow, like, man, that was a high level baseball game tonight in, the Sun Belt Conference, And I'm a firm believer, it's a top 3 conference. It is in baseball, like it is, and it can compete for top 2 any day of the week. And any team in this conference can roll out and beat one of those other teams in those other conferences that many believe that are better. But that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah. I feel like Texas State is that team this year, right? Like not even the top of the Sun Belt, but somehow they beat two very highly ranked teams. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, you on any given night, and you know, people look and it's like, man, they beat Texas. I'm pretty sure Texas, right?
Yeah, and they beat Texas A&M like 3 weeks into when Texas A&M was number one. They obviously slipped a little bit.
Yeah,
and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, man, it's great. It's great baseball, and I don't think you'll be able to find many more, you know, teams in one conference that put together the type of crowd and fans that support their team so much than any other conference. You know, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, to 110%.
I think the stat coming into this year was the Sun Belt and SEC and ACC were the only conferences the last 2 to 3 years that put 5 teams in consistently. And last year in conference tournaments, every Sun Belt team that made that conference tournament was a top 100 RPI, which is, I mean, just speaks to everything that we've been talking about. Like day in, day out, every hitter, every pitcher, like you're going against dudes. Like there's no easy wins here. There's no layups. Like you got to play ball.
Not at all. Not at all.
And speaking of no easy wins, you want great baseball, be sure to tune in to Friday's game here. We have this is cool too. We have the last two guys on the show will be the 2 starters Friday night. Caleb Cross, Bryce Blevins. It's going to be a great one at the Jack. And we can't wait to see it, man. We really appreciate you jumping on with us tonight. And, you know, if you got any NIL deals or anything specific you want to say before we get out of here, man, are free.
No, like I said, I just want to say I appreciate you all for having me back on. And, you know, like I said, this is just the beginning to great things this season. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. We will definitely be doing it again, man.
I'll say I'm sold. For the last 45 minutes, I'm ready to run through a brick wall for Marshall baseball.
That's right. It's good.
You are an ambassador, my man. You are what every school should have.
I just want to say this. So we do picks every week, right, of every conference series. And we grade ourselves hard. You don't just pick the winner. You got to pick the games. So you got to pick they're going to win this game. They're going to win that game. That's how we pick. So last week, Seth took you guys over Southern Miss. And, buddy, he got so much crap on the internet leading into that series. And we've got some people that have now blocked us and have burner accounts that won't even respond to us because they said some pretty rude
security
things.
outside my house right now.
In the last show, instead of saying Seth Johnson, it said mayor of Huntington, West Virginia. So Seth is your newly elected mayor, public servant, and Marshall Thundering Herd fan.
That's funny. That's funny.
Appreciate you, man. Seriously, thank you.
I really appreciate you being on.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Bryce. We'll see you on Friday night, man.
Yes, sir. See you guys.